how come there was this statistic that showcased around a 1,500% movement in regard to a certain aspect when it comes to Jasmy? Why was that even the case? I'll explain in today's video, even though nothing I say is financial advice and even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. So did you know that recently, BSC News basically, right? They made this post saying how Jasmy recorded a 1,500% jump in whale transactions over the past week. According to Sentiment at least, they said that the spike ranked amongst the largest increases across this space, basically, somewhere along those lines. Kind of impressive because seeing that much of an increase in terms of whale transactions over the past week, that just sounds so bizarre. Like, who would have thought that would be the case, right? If we take a look at Jasmy, it's not in the top 50, it's not in the top 100. So seeing something like that seems very bizarre to me. But what does that showcase? It may showcase that some whales out there within this space, they may care about Jasmy to a certain extent, right? Keep in mind, when it comes to bigger players within this space, like the ones that actually have like that massive capital, sometimes people refer to them as whales, right? When it comes to this space. The thing is, when it comes to that, they have a bunch of other projects they could believe in, usually. But why are they caring about Jasmy? You know what? I think one of the major reasons also could be that Jasmy, they might find to be a little bit low. Keep in mind, I'm not saying that it is, but maybe they might view it that way. At a market cap as of right now that is around 300 million, it's around 7 times lower than where it once was in terms of market cap when compared to December of 2024. So around 7 times lower. So could some of these bigger players, these whales, right, within this space, people like to call them that, are they the ones that might see something like this and say, you know what? Bitcoin is not around 7 times lower than where it once was in December of 2024. They might be thinking that, who knows? But Jasmy, apparently from the charts, it is around 7 times lower when compared to December 2024. Not to mention, some people like to say, well, these whales, why don't they just believe in like a microcap? Well, a microcap inherently, because it's very small, right? It usually doesn't have the established nature and kind of the proven track record that some of the bigger projects out there have. In which case, some of these whales, they don't want to believe in a project like that. That's understandable. But then sometimes people like to say, well, why don't they just focus on Bitcoin? Well, when it comes to Bitcoin, if it goes back to its all-time high, it's not even 2 times lower than that as of right now. So that may bring some disinterest, right? That may not interest some whales. So where do they sometimes look at? Usually these projects that aren't necessarily in the top 10, but more so kind of ranked below it, but not too low, right? In which case, Jasmy might hypothetically be that somewhat medium, because it's ranked 116th in the world as of right now within this space in terms of market cap. So first of all, it's not too massive, but it's not too small either. So if it recovers, it still does something maybe that isn't considered boring, but it wouldn't have the kind of, I guess, scary vibes that a microcap may have, right? So it's just kind of this balance in between. It's like, for instance, let's say I don't want a sports car, but I don't really want an off-road vehicle either. I get something in between. What do I get? Maybe like a BMW X5 or something. I don't know, right? Or like a Toyota RAV4. That's the thing. It's not like too sporty, but it's not like an off-road vehicle either. A RAV4 is a SUV. So at the end of the day, like, that's sometimes like the perfect balance in between. And it kind of makes sense, right? The BMW example maybe wasn't that good, but the Toyota one, I think it's actually a pretty good example because Toyota, it's from Japan, Jasmy, it's from Japan as well. So yeah, it was a better analogy in my opinion. But yeah, again, I think that might be one of the reasons why some of these whales, right, may be caring about some projects of this size. In which case, again, Jasmy recording around a 1,500% jump in whale transactions over the past week. That's so bizarre, but not really. When I take a look at it a little bit deeper, I understand maybe why some of these bigger players may be taking a look at something like this. But I'm not telling anyone to do anything. This is just from what I observed, from what I saw, again, put on the news basically, from what I saw when it comes to the updates, and also just my analysis when it comes to the charts, that's it. But when I kind of culminate that, when I kind of combine all that, it just kind of paints this whole picture, which makes that recent statistic that I mentioned before not as surprising, in a sense where it's like, okay, now I get it, right? Now I understand that why some of these whales may care about a project like this, even though it may not be considered the most impressive, but sometimes there's a meaning behind that. You know what I mean? It's like, for instance, a Toyota. Is it the most interesting car of all time? No. You know, I've never seen someone pull out their phone and try to take a picture of a Toyota. I've never seen that ever before. You know what I mean? I've seen that when it comes to a Lamborghini. Like, I've seen people do that. I've seen people try to take a picture of like a McLaren or an Aston Martin, but I've never seen someone do it with a Toyota. But is that necessarily a bad thing though? No, because Toyota, a lot of people consider it to be reliable, right? So what it may lack in terms of the cool factor, maybe the reliability, is often prioritized. That's the thing. So when it comes to Jasmy, sure, people like to wonder, why do whales care about this project so much? Well, again, it may not be the coolest, but it's also not a microcap. Maybe sometimes they want that balance in between. Where the recovery, if it were to recover, it wouldn't feel so boring, but then it wouldn't have kind of the associated sort of scary vibes that a microcap may have. So maybe that's kind of the balance that they're hypothetically looking for. And that's just something that I consider as well personally for me. And also, if we take a look at it, Jasmy isn't a particularly sort of super interesting project by many people's standards. It's actually not. It's focused on data storage. Sure, it has an incubation project under it, which is called Junction, and Junction's really focused on AI. It's a layer 2. But even though Junction has a focus on AI, it's not like Junction is so popular. It's really not. It's not even like one of the biggest players within the AI space, within this space. It just isn't. And couple that with the fact that Jasmy is focused on data storage, a historically quote-unquote boring market, seeing again a 1,500% jump in whale transactions over the past week, that just sounds so impressive to me. A lot of people don't really expect that, but I think what that may showcase is that some people may be taking a look at Jasmy, right? Some people are exiting, but some people are also just newly caring about Jasmy. So that's the thing. A lot of people thought that, wow, you know, Jasmy got written off, it's done for, it's cooked. However, sometimes the stats, right, the statistics, they may showcase a different story. Granted, has that made Jasmy just randomly go on an independent rally of its own? No, it hasn't. It requires a broader change in market sentiment, in my opinion. Bitcoin is still at around 80 grand. You know, Jasmy can't really do much if Bitcoin is just stabilizing at around 80 grand. But besides that point, again, if let's say even the bigger players within this space are seemingly caring about Jasmy, I think it may showcase that they might see something that we don't see, right? But it's not even really anything that we might not necessarily see either. Because if I take a look at it, Jasmy, in terms of how I would explain this project, it's kind of simple actually. Again, like I mentioned before, it's primarily focused on data storage. It has an incubation project under it called Junction, and that's really focused on AI. So that's kind of simple. However, also on top of that, Jasmy, it has a big presence in Japan, originated from Japan, right? And many of its team members used to work at places like Sony, for instance, so that's really massive. Not to mention as well, it's the first kind of project of its kind to ever achieve legal compliance in Japan. So that's another kind of thing that a lot of people have contributed to having the nickname, right, of the Bitcoin of Japan. It isn't, but that's just the nickname. So when I take a look at Jasmy, it's kind of a simple project if I take a look at it at the end of the day, but some of these, again, bigger players, they might see something, you know what I mean, when it comes to this. So yeah, I'm still waiting, but I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very amazing and wonderful day. It's been Lee the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.